A young racer, fresh out of prison, must turn to the father who abandoned him to navigate the dangerous world of racing and reclaim his life. The movie starts with an illegal street race. During the race, the sound of approaching sirens alarms the racers, and soon the area is flooded with police cars. Wes, one of the racers, tries to escape but falls off his bike, leading to his quick arrest by the police. The scene then shifts to Wes, speaking with his probation officer while he's in prison. She tells him that finding a job will be challenging and suggests that construction work might be his only option. However, Wes is uninterested and only asks when he can get his bike back. As soon as he's released, he takes off with his bike. Wes arrives at a location where a race is about to begin. He stands among the spectators and notices a man in the crowd, recognizing him even through his helmet. After the race, Wes approaches one of the racers, Dean Miller, his father. Wes tries to start a conversation, but Dean is initially dismissive, not recognizing Wes until he mentions his mother, Laura Neal. Realizing who Wes is, Dean still tries to brush him off, saying it's not the best time. Wes persists, and eventually, Dean suggests they head to a nearby bar called Maggie's to talk over a beer. Later that night, Wes meets Dean at the bar as planned. However, Dean acts irresponsibly, flirting and hooking up with women right in front of Wes. This behavior frustrates Wes, who eventually decides to leave. Dean follows him outside, trying to calm him down, but Wes isn't interested in hearing excuses. Wes then suggests they smoke and talk. As they were talking, Wes revealed his true purpose for coming. He wanted to race professionally. Dean is skeptical, pointing out how difficult it is to break into the sport, especially at Wes's age, since most racers are scouted much younger. Wes angrily decides to leave, but Dean offers to help by inviting Wes to bring his bike to the Legacy Speed Shop, where Dean works. He offers to give Wes a tune-up for free, and Wes agrees to stop by. The next day, Dean went to the shop. He met the owner, Abel. Dean also came from the back and introduced the two of them. Dean then told Wes to follow to the back and showed him the bikes. He showed him a very good bike, and Wes asked if he could ride it, so the two went out to ride their bikes together. While riding, Dean noticed Wes was being reckless and told him to pull over. Dean angrily warned Wes that his behavior could get them both killed, but Wes dismissed it, suggesting Dean was just upset about losing. Despite Wes's attitude, Dean agreed to take him to the track, but emphasized that the track requires discipline, warning that if Wes acted recklessly again, their partnership would end. The next morning, Dean gave Wes a racing jacket, and they went out to race. During the race, Wes crashed his bike. Dean mocked him and told Wes to load the bike onto the truck before they left the track. Back at the motel, Wes asked Dean what to do about the damaged bike. Dean bluntly advised him to strip it for parts and make some money. Wes, desperate, explained that racing was his only hope after 6 months in prison. Dean, though initially skeptical, agreed to train Wes under strict conditions, telling him to show up at the shop on Monday morning, ready to start. The next morning, Wes visits a diner where a waitress, recognizing him from before, asks about his bike. He tells her he crashed it, and she asks where he's from. Noticing he's new in town, before leaving, Wes asks her out for drinks. She initially refuses, saying she doesn't date customers, but then gives him her number after he promises not to eat there again. Wes then heads to the shop to meet Dean, who gives him a new bike. Wes promises to pay him back. While Dean works on the bike, he shares some of his background with Wes. As they talk, Abel arrives and informs Dean that someone is there for him. Abel then offers Wes a job, which Wes gladly accepts. Wes begins working at the shop, with Abel keeping a close eye on his interactions with customers. Meanwhile, Wes continues his training with Dean. Dean began instructing Wes through an earpiece while they were riding, but Wes quickly found it annoying and turned it off. Despite this, Dean continued to train Wes daily, and Wes steadily improved. One day, after a training session, Dean and Wes had a conversation where Dean reflected on how much fun he was having, admitting that he had forgotten the joy of riding after so many years of competing. Dean then told Wes that he believed he was ready for his first race, and Wes confidently agreed, feeling prepared for the challenge ahead. Wes met up with Camila, the woman from the diner, for drinks. They talked about motorcycles, with Camila expressing her belief that they are dangerous. She also shared that she is studying to become a nurse. When she suggested they dance, Wes hesitated, admitting he couldn't dance, but she convinced him and they ended up dancing and kissing. The next morning, Wes headed to the track for his first race. As they were preparing, 2 other racers, Bobby and Cody, showed up. Dean introduced Wes as Legacy's newest rider, and a bit of banter followed between the racers. Bobby and Cody, representing Feral Performance, mentioned their high expectations and recent equipment upgrades, setting the stage for some rivalry. The race began, with Dean standing among the audience, cheering enthusiastically for Wes. As the race progressed, Wes took the lead, and Camila, who was also in the crowd, loudly cheered him on. After a fierce competition, Wes emerged victorious. Dean proudly shouted to the audience, claiming Wes as his son. Wes received a trophy for his win. After the ceremony, Camila approached to congratulate him. Dean introduced himself as Wes's trainer and father. Camila mentioned she had a night shift, and Wes walked her out of the track. She asked why Wes hadn't mentioned his father before, to which Wes simply replied that it was complicated. After a brief goodbye, Camila kissed him and got into her car. Later that night, Dean and Wes went to a bar to celebrate Wes's victory. Wes thanked Dean for everything, and Dean responded by telling Wes that he wouldn't have helped if he didn't believe in Wes's talent. They toasted to the victory and the journey ahead. Dean, in high spirits, announced the bar, telling everyone that Wes had won his first race and encouraging anyone who wanted to buy him a drink. The next morning, Wes showed up late to work, smelling of liquor. Abel called him into his office, pointing out that Wes had been out celebrating after his first race and was now 2 hours late. Wes apologized, promising it wouldn't happen again. Abel, disappointed but understanding, warned Wes that Dean isn't his father and that he needs to stay focused. Wes assured him that he was there to race and won't let him down. Later, Wes mentioned the trouble with Abel to Dean, who offered Wes his R6 to race, explaining that his own back was too injured to continue. Dean encouraged Wes to move up to the 600 class to compete at higher levels and make real money, believing in Wes's potential. The next day, Wes took Camila to a lake, where they talked. Camila thought Dean seemed cool, but Wes explained he had just met him and came to find him only to race, not to build a relationship. Camila shared her own experiences with her father, revealing how she eventually forgave him for her own peace of mind. Wes and Camila spent the night together at her place. In the morning, they were startled by a knock on the door. Camila quickly told Wes to get dressed, and after he did, he saw Camila with a little boy and her mother. She introduced the boy as her son, Leo. Later, after showing Leo Wes's bike, they had a moment alone where Wes asked why she hadn't told him about her son. Camila admitted she was afraid of scaring him off and acknowledged that it was selfish of her. Wes reassured her, saying Leo seemed like a sweet boy. He then mentioned he needed to get to the track and promised to call her. Wes went to the track to start training with his new bike, but found it difficult to handle. He told Dean that the bike didn't feel right. Dean, frustrated, reminded Wes that the new bike was a $50,000 race bike and expressed disbelief that it wasn't meeting his expectations. Wes suggested that he should stick with the twin to gain more experience before moving on to the new bike. Dean, however, pushed back, emphasizing that if Wes finished in the top 3 in Open Supersport, he would qualify for the Nationals, which would attract more sponsors, something Wes had wanted. Wes spent time with Camila and Leo, where Camila opened up about Leo's father, explaining that he wasn't involved in Leo's life. The next day, Camila and Leo came to watch Wes race. Before the race, Dean approached Wes and mentioned that he didn't know Camila had a child. After a brief acknowledgement, Dean shifted the conversation, instructing Wes to take Cody off the track. He criticized Cody for being a spoiled rider who posed a danger to others, suggesting that Wes would be doing everyone a favor by getting him off the track. The race begins, and Wes follows his father's instructions to take Cody out, After the race, tensions boil over, leading to a fight between Dean and Cody, with Wes joining up. Seeing the chaos, Camila quickly leaves the scene. Wes tries to stop her, but she leaves without speaking to him. Abel later confronts Dean, accusing him of disgracing both the shop and the sport by encouraging reckless behavior. Dean argues that Wes would have been on the podium if he had followed through, but Abel remains unimpressed. He demands Dean remove Legacy's name from Wes's suit, criticizing Dean for clinging to past glories and ruining his career after his injury. Dean lashes out, insisting he doesn't need Abel, and is determined to take Wes to the top, while Abel warns that Dean might be dragging Wes down. Abel then walks away, leaving Dean defiant and alone. In the bar, Dean tells Wes that he's leaving the shop and wants Wes to come with him. Wes worries about money, But Dean reassures him he has enough to cover them. He urges Wes to live with him so they can train full-time and secure a spot on a racing team, leading to big sponsorship deals. When Wes hesitates, Dean warns him to stay focused, cautioning against getting too involved with Camila, implying it could derail his future. The next day, Wes went to the shop. He apologized to Abel about the fight and told him he was leaving because he had to train full-time. Wes moved in with Dean. Dean showed him where he would be staying and told him they would start the training tomorrow. The next morning, Wes and Dean resumed training, but Wes struggled to get used to the bike. Growing increasingly frustrated, Dean tried to calm him down by sharing his own experiences. Later, Wes went to Camila to reconcile, but she expressed concerns after seeing him hit someone, saying she didn't want him around her son. She also confronted him about not telling her he had been in prison, revealing that Dean had mentioned it. The conversation escalated into an argument, with Wes accusing her of wanting a father for Leo and saying she was getting in his way. Hurt, Camila told him to leave. Wes returned to Dean's house and asked what had happened between him and his mother. Dean explained that he had met Wes's mom in church and they had a good time together, which led to her becoming pregnant. Dean admitted that he wasn't happy about the pregnancy and chose to leave instead of being a father, prioritizing racing over family responsibilities. This revelation deeply upset Wes, leading to a fight between the two. As Wes was about to leave, Dean broke down and cried, telling him he was scared of being a father. That night, Wes participated in an illegal race and ended up getting arrested. Abel bailed him out, and Wes, overwhelmed, hugged Abel and broke down in tears. Back at Abel's home, Abel asked Wes about Camila, and Wes admitted that things didn't work out. Abel then shared how his marriage ended because he prioritized racing over his family. He told Wes he could stay as long as he needed. The next day, Dean visited Wes to apologize for their fight. He opened up about his abusive father, explaining that this relationship made him believe he wouldn't be a good father to Wes. So he left, thinking it would be better for Wes and his mom. Wes listened and told Dean that he was beginning to understand who Dean was. Abel showed Wes his bike collection and encouraged him to keep racing, telling him that he was good at it and needed to pursue it. Later, Wes went to apologize to Camila, but she wasn't interested in talking. He told her about his upcoming big race and expressed his desire for her and Leo to be there. However, Camila explained that she couldn't bear the thought of watching him risk his life on the track every day and returned to her house. The next day, as Wes was preparing for a race, he noticed Dean there as well. When Wes asked why, Dean revealed that he was also going to race. Just before the race began, Wes saw Camila in the audience, who called out to him. As the race started, Wes and Dean quickly moved ahead of the pack, battling each other for first place. However, near the end of the race, Dean suddenly veered off the track, crashing hard. With Dean out of the race, Wes crossed the finish line as the victor. As Dean was being taken for medical attention, he raised his hand to congratulate Wes, who acknowledged it with a nod. The movie concludes with everyone celebrating Wes's victory. Camila came to the track and kissed him, marking a moment of reconciliation and triumph.